Good afternoon. This is Chef Tim Murphy. We're at our home in Florida. We're going to be making Grandma Bernice's, my dad's mom's, famous orange cookies. This recipe takes 2 eggs. It takes a cup and a half of sugar. It takes a cup of shortening. Back in the 60s, everybody used Crisco. I've upgraded all my recipes to using real butter. It also called for a cup of sour milk. Sour milk, I thought it was probably condensed milk, but that's not true. It was a cup of milk that they added a teaspoon of vinegar to and let it set for about a half hour, and that made what they call sour milk. And so when you see a vintage recipe and it has sour milk in it, for every cup you put 1 teaspoon of vinegar in it. It has 4 cups of flour, all-purpose. It has a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, and the juice and a rind of 1 orange, and I'll show you that shortly. Another addition that I have made to the product, orange extract. And this, again, this was not part of the original recipe. I like to add it. It just gives it a little more body, a little bit more orange flavor. We're going to start. I'm going to bring over the mixing bowl, which I have 2 sticks, which equals the 1 cup of shortening. And then to that, I'm going to add a cup and a half of sugar. Now the sugar, you can just shake it and level it. The flour, I'm going to show you a different technique. So that's the sugar and the butter are going to be the first thing. You're going to be creaming those 2 things together. This is where you get into a little bit of technique. I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute. I don't know if I missed the day when they were talking about measuring flour. I mean, the best way is in all the new recipes, they're weighing it, and that is the best way with a gram scale to weigh the flour. But the other way is you scoop it lightly out of the flour bag, and you take a knife and you use it like a plow across. You do not tip it, you do not force this flour, because then you're packing it. Is all you want to do is level it. So we're going to level the flour. Might take a couple times. This recipe gets 4 cups. I also count in my head, placing cup 3. This cookie was part of every Murphy celebration. I don't care if it was Christmas, New Year's, Easter, anything we did in the summer. Grandma Bernice always made orange cookies. It was an absolute family favorite. To that flour, we're going to put a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of baking soda and a half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, so this is, it's going to be 1 teaspoon. So you're going to want to go back to the leveling it off. It doesn't matter if you force down a little bit on it, but 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I leveled that on the side of the box there, and then a half a teaspoon of salt. And again, I strongly recommend you, when you're making this recipe, prep all this stuff out. Have all this stuff ready. Have the rind taken off your orange. Get it all ready so that you can just follow it through quickly. That works the best. Next is we're going to get the orange ready. First thing we're going to do with the orange, take the rind off before we juice it. This cookie, the rind of 1 orange and the juice of 1 orange goes into the recipe. However, the topping, the glaze for the orange cookies is also 1 orange, and then it probably ends up taking 2 or 3 cups of powdered sugar. You just do that as you go along. Now, you can use this is a microplane. This is going to make that rind really, really fine, which I think is probably better. But you go around the orange and you get all the rind off the orange. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to juice that orange. To juice them and not have a juicer, you basically take your fingers and go right in and just squeeze the juice out of it. These are seedless navel oranges, so you don't have to worry about getting a bunch of seeds in the cookie. But the nicest way to juice an orange is to use the juicer. When you go in the gadget shops, you'll see a section that has that like OOXX on it. This happens to be that company's juicer. Still doesn't hurt to take, we ended up on the big oranges, go in with both of your hands, squeeze that juice out. Same thing with the other. So that's going to be the juice that's going into the batter and the rind that's going into the batter. Right now is a good time to take that teaspoon of orange extract and put that right in the juice. And now you can do this with a hand mixer, no problem. Anytime you're using a stand mixer, start it slow. The last thing you want to do is give it too much gas, give it too much electric, and you're going to have a real problem making a mess and not being a great baker. And also, you want, when you're creaming something, you've got to get that sugar and that butter blended together and creamed together as you add the ingredients. Now this butter I took out about an hour and a half ago, and then I put it in the microwave for about 15 seconds, and basically just to temper it down a little bit. You don't want melted butter because it just doesn't cream right with the sugar. And the other thing that is a good thing to do is partway through the mixing process, take your cream mixture that you've made and just bring it off the sides. And then when we start again, we can start going in with the milk. So now I'm going to take, first thing is 2 eggs. I was going to tell you that back in the days I could crack them with my fingers. Might have an accident if I tried that now. But I used to be able to, one thing in chef school they taught us is that you cracked them and then you took your fingers and you peeled them open and you dropped them in. And you had to be able to do 2 at a time in the baking classes. So you had to be able to take 2 eggs, go boom, crack them with your fingers into the pan. It's actually starting to come away from the sides a little bit. So now it's time just slowly to add in the milk. Add in the citrus. And that is the juice of 1 orange and the rind of 1 orange. I spent my whole career in the food service industry doing demos. We have our own company, Brick Village Gourmet, where we make salad dressings and stuff. Did some bakery products over the years, never did cookies or anything like that for production. But again, always loved to have these, make these around the holidays. We ship them out in boxes and get the whole family some of the tastes of our family that we grew up with. And it means a lot to me to do that. And the ones that get the cookies, I can't tell you how much joy they pass back to us, telling us what that means to them to get those boxes of family cookies. This is one of our star recipes from one of our star ladies in the family, Grandma Bernice, who lost her husband, and my grandfather and my dad were in a serious car accident, and Grandpa Lee passed away and my dad lived, or I guess I wouldn't be here making the cookies. But now as we put the flour in, we do not want to overmix it. With Brad, when he was doing it with a hand mixer, I had him go at it just very gingerly, and then just take the spatula and fold it in, because the last thing you want to do at this point of the recipe is to beat this hard, because that'll do nothing but toughen up the dough. This is where we would stand by the table and wait for Grandma Bernice to hand us the beater. I've got a wonderful story about licking the bowl that I'll share with you sometime. A completely different spin on it that I've had a lot of fun with my bus groups this last year, with an apron that says "Life is short, lick the bowl." Okay, so now we're going to take that batter off of the stand mixer and basically just fold it in.
What does that mean?
Just fold it in.
I understand that, but how do you fold it? Do you fold it in half like a piece of paper and drop it in the pot, or what do you do?
Just fold it in. Get yourself a good, this is a stiff rubber spatula. These are also the kind that can take some heat too. But if you put that in the mixer, like I said, and kept on even for 40 seconds, it will toughen up that dough. Once you get to the flour, the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt, you don't want to do a lot of extra mixing. So this batter is good to go. I'm going to show you just putting it out onto the cookie sheets. By the way, these are, they call them air pans, and it is an insulated baking pan. If you're going to get serious about making cookies, use an air pan, because the old style that Grandma used were thin, they were metal, they got stained up, and they just put too much color on the bottom of the cookie. This pan right here, we're going to do these cookies at 350. We're also going to use parchment paper. Parchment paper wasn't something that they used either. They would lightly grease a cookie sheet. Parchment paper, much better. This scoop is 1.5 tablespoons of product. For this particular cookie, when you scoop it, get your extra off. You see on the first one there how that cookie is larger? It's because I didn't clean off the excess. If you leave the stuff hanging around the side of it, it's going to come right down onto that cookie. You can do about a 12 count on this pan, which is going to be 4 by 3. Okay, this is ready to go to the oven. We're going to set the timer on this for 12 minutes. And then while that is coming along, we're going to do the other orange and get ready to make frosting. So for the frosting, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the orange, we're going to cut it in half. We're going to get it up onto the juicer. They make really nifty automated juicers too, that you just press the orange down into and the juice comes out the bottom. If you're doing this and you think your orange is a little small or whatever, sometimes I will do an extra half an orange or 2 small oranges. Especially on the glaze, you don't want to be short on glaze. Separate this. Put this into the bowl. Now for the glaze. We've taken that rind from the second orange. We've juiced it out. We're going to start with, and again, this is a dumping situation, probably 1.5 cups or 2 cups to start with. Slow with your beater. Okay, so Now we're going to add some more confectionery. I'm going to say probably another cup. I'll bet you by the time you get done, and again, it depends on the orange itself. But to get the glaze made, you're going to end up with probably 3 cups, 2.5 to 3 cups of confectionery sugar in there. You can start to see there's a little bit of definition in this now as the beater goes through. You're getting very close to where you want it. We'll put maybe a 1/2 cup more in. Again, this is not a glaze that's like a heavy frosting. This is a glaze. And as it sits, it will harden up, so you can even stack cookies on top of each other. We like to, if we're going to put them in a container, we will put some wax paper or something in between them. But it is not a heavy frosting. It is strictly a glaze. Again, you can see we're starting to get some marks. Not going to hurt to put a little air into this. So I've increased the speed. Again, we'd be waiting for those beaters. The cookies then have to come out of the oven, and they need to set for 15 or 20 minutes because it's not good to glaze them when they're too hot, or this mixture will just run right off them. But again, this is still a glaze like they would use when they're glazing a glazed donut or whatever. It's a thinner glaze. It will thicken up. Only 2 ingredients. I did not add the orange extract to that. You could, but it is still fine just with the confectionery sugar and the rind and the juice of the other orange. I'm going to pull the cookies out. If I'm doing this on regular time and I'm not filming it, I'm prepping 2 pans to go into the oven. While those 2 pans are cooking the first batch, I'll make the glaze and then let that sit. And then after that, I will continue to slide these off the parchment paper as they come out, and then have other ones that are already on the parchment paper, not on the cookie sheets, bring it out of the oven and just do a transfer. We're going to ice, this is in the center is the first batch that came out. We're going to be icing those in just a second, but I just wanted to show you the technique basically that we use for refilling the pans. So these other 2 pans just came out of the oven. I went up to the counter with them. I grabbed onto the sheet of paper and I just pull them off onto the counter. Then I have 2 hot pans that are ready to go. So I come back to where while those were cooking, I made 2 more pieces of parchment and I laid them out. And now you'll have 2 more pans that are ready to go in, and that'll keep your production going. You can, this is personal preference. I've made it where I've added more confectionery sugar and got it almost to the frosting consistency. But it's important to help keep these cookies moist, that you don't just have frosting setting on the top of them, that basically you're just painting. And again, here I'm using like a small soup spoon, starting in the center, and then it'll flow down. You definitely, now if I was to put it on those hot cookies, it would run right off. This is the finale here of this. Then we have to wait in order for the other ones to cool down. But again, Grandma's famous orange cookie recipe it means so much to me to keep this recipe going. Again, Happy New Year, love to you all, and enjoy Grandma Bernice's orange cookies. Please make them.
David, what does burning smell like?